Hi, Walter.
Hi, Sanya. Thank you for being again with me.
I really love being with you. It's my pleasure. Walter, we were, last when we met, I remember you telling me about your journey in India, the trip you went,
Yeah,
and, you did some interesting things. You met the Mother Ganga, the
yeah.
Ganga River, and the experiences there. And then you also talked about the Reiki retreat in India in the year 2000.
Hmm.
So if we can take up from there, because now we're talking about you and your journey,
Yeah.
life journey, and things you've been doing and who you are as a person, at the same time,
Hmm.
your
Hmm.
work profile through your Rainbow Reiki and other specialities that you carry. You're a widely read person. You
Hmm.
have the ability to incorporate philosophies, life lessons, and also I believe from your that I have seen the journey. I met you at the age of 18, and we've been holding this relationship. And you're a
Hmm.
master in relationships. This is what my understanding of you is. With
Hmm.
all your, way of being as a person that you spoke in your youth years, what you've become today is what I can talk about. Is that what I
Hmm.
experience the energy of you is that you actually understand the core of human being, and
Hmm.
your openness is the key of your compassion that you
Hmm.
project in your being and your state of affairs that you have. I just did Lemurian Reiki with you. It was mind blowing.
Hmm.
So I can only recommend people to come to you. So with
Thank
this, the field that I carry for you, I want to begin with your journey after 2000, the year 2000.
you. Yeah, that was a remarkable time because, well, my spiritual guides, let's say angels, they take care of me as whenever I listen and open up to them. And some years before the year 2000, they started to get me interested in reading English language books about spiritual topics, about alternative medicine and philosophy and so on. So Alan Watts, Shakti Gavan, and many other authors. And so when there was this wonderful opportunity in India to talk about Reiki and philosophy, which you and Ravi organized, um, I already had some years before to get into that language. Otherwise, I had learned English in school, and I had some newspapers which I read frequently, but this is not the same like being fluent in Esotalk, I would say. There are special terms, there are special kinds of expressing something which you won't find in the regular newspaper. Usually, people even don't know the term if they are not in crowd, in the esoteric community. So the year 2000 started me with this exceptional event in India, the Asian Reiki Congress. And then same year, I was booked in Michigan on William Lee Rand's International Reiki Convention, where I think about 200 people came together from all over the world, and there were lots of great talks about Reiki topics, and we had much fun. There was party, there were discussions. It was really a great time. Then I was in Brazil and gave classes in Brazil, and then I also was going to Japan for I think it was 6 weeks, and traveled Japan, Tokyo, Kyoto, and other places to do research about Uzui and Hayashi. So I wanted to talk with the land. I'm a shaman, and when I'm at a certain place, the place can tell me about things, and this will be authentic information. So I did this on the graveyard of Uzui at his grave, where there is this memorial stone, and also in Kyoto, Mount Kurama. And later, I was going to Hong Kong. No, I was in Hong Kong when there was the New Year's Eve. This was even before I was going to India. I had some time in Hong Kong, and I met Qigong masters there, and had some mind-blowing spiritual experiences with the goddess Kuan Yin. And small but powerful temple close to the port of Aberdeen with these floating restaurants. It's a beautiful space. But the temple was in a small street and not much remarkable, but the energy, tremendous, was blowing me away. This really helped me to understand certain aspects of Reiki, which I did not understand before. Then I was at Victoria's Peak, very high over the skyscrapers of Hong Kong skyline and with a beautiful view. And there were other power spots which told me something. And from that spot on, I was also able to look at the other side. And people who have not traveled Hong Kong, they mostly think that Hong Kong is all about cities and ports and everything. No, no, just go to the other side in these wonderful, very comfortable, climatized buses, which are like luxury buses, which carry you everywhere for 25 cents at that time, Hong Kong dollar cents. So it was, I don't know, 10 cents USD or so. And at the other side, there are tropical beaches, lavish hotels. And there is this famous hotel which has a large hole within its building structure so that the lung, the dragon from the mountain, can come to the water and go back to its lair in the mountains. And dragons in Asia, they are understood as very benevolent, very, very um, kind and loving creatures, which was always what I experienced with them. So I absolutely do not share this European, let's say, Christian church point of view that dragons are nasty, ugly, brutal beasts. They are not at all. They wonder often how brutal humans can be. So this is why I also give classes about dragon angels, and communicating with them helps us to understand nature within and without so much better. Little bit here, but mostly in the heart. Some things you can understand by studying them and thinking about them and taking your time to analyze them and collecting information. But the really important stuff, you just need to convince your mind that your mind will not get in the way of allowing the heart to experience something. So this is why I try to educate the mind, to reach out to the mind of the students, because if the mind blocks the path, it's really hard to walk it. But if the mind understands that it cannot understand, that the mind gets it, that there is something very valuable, very interesting to get, which it will not really be able to know about, but it is important, then the mind will just step aside and allow the heart to do its work. And this was the beginning of something of my own development, where I understood more about the shortcomings of science. I have a somewhat scientific education. I studied 5 semesters of business sciences. I was in high school, and I was always interested in sciences like chemistry, physics, astronomics, and so on. And I thought for a while that science can help us to explain the world. Today I know it cannot, but it is a good tool to calm down the mind so the mind understands that it cannot understand, but that there is something out there which is interesting to go. So why can science not help us to understand the world? See, one thing which people do not really get when they talk about science usually is science is collecting information and setting up theories, hypotheses, but whatever science is doing then is just an ongoing process of collecting information and structuring them and making documents and giving people some guesses about what it could mean, what they have observed. And then there is something very important, which most people, even the scientists, don't know about, or if they know about, they don't care about. And this is the ceteris paribus principle. Ceteris paribus means that if you do a certain research project, whatever it is, a scientific research project, you just watch certain parameters, and the rest you just declare that all the other parameters, which you might know or not know, will not change while you do your observation, which of course is unreal. Of course they change. And then one part of science does not know about another part of science. Like, you might have heard the name of Linus Pauling, don't you?
Yeah.
This 2 times Nobel Prize winner, 1 time chemistry, 1 time a Nobel Peace Prize. Come on, this guy really had some understanding. And he was diagnosed with terminal cancer when he was in the beginning of his 70s. Then he followed the advice of some of his friends who were, let's say, alternative medical doctors. They told him, take vitamin C in abundance. So he took up to 20 grams of vitamin C daily, orally. And guess when and why he died? When he was in the beginning of his 90s, completely healthy, because he was run down by a car. When he was crossing the street, a car wasn't, the driver did not watch him, and so he was dead, but otherwise completely healthy. And he took for about 20 years up to 20 grams of vitamin C daily. So this guy, Linus Pauling, got the Nobel Prize, which is given in your now homeland of Sweden, I guess, every year, for his works about chemical reaction and quantum physics. So this is amazing, I guess, because chemistry, ask someone who is specialized in chemistry science and tell the person, what are you doing there? You must take in regards that there is quantum physics involved. You will say, what? Forget it. I'm not a physicist. I'm a chemist. I don't care about quantum mechanics. But since Linus Pauling got his Nobel Prize, and this is 30 years ago, come on, he proved that if there is a chemical reaction, there is quantum physics involved. But nobody really understands quantum physics. We know it's there, but there are so many question marks, more than whatever we know. So to make a long story short, I understood that science gives you ideas why things happen the way and why they are there. And 1 year later, what you have learned this year is rubbish. You put it into the garbage bin because you have a new idea, a new theory, which of course is the best one. And everybody applauds to it. And 1 year later, they have a new theory. So there is one science, like engineering, which provides us with technology. And there is one kind of science which provides us with ideas which will be abolished next year, and we get new ideas. And in between, the engineering gives us technology which on the short run creates miracles. Like, just look at the mobile phone. Just look what we are doing right here, the internet, But on mid-term and long term, they create disasters. Just think about the fact that intelligent people, very intelligent people, scientifically trained, develop nuclear bombs, hydrogen bombs, nuclear power plants, knowing exactly that what comes out of these plants must be watched closely and guarded for several hundred thousands of years. Only an idiot can take that kind of risk. But they were highly intelligent people. So what the heck did they do? Behave like scientists? No, not at all. So this is why when people tell me this is scientifically proven, I just think about that. It was scientifically proven in the end of the 1900s that nobody can move faster than about 30 kilometers per hour. Some professors in Berlin, they came to that statement because the internal organs will just explode. That's too fast. Today we know that is not true. But at that time, several professors from Berlin University were setting up this and telling people, don't go and take the railway because this will be too fast and your inner organs will just be destroyed. So forget it. Just drive by horse. So today, we just mentioned this when we talked before. We have an interesting situation, which in a way is something to laugh about and at the other side to cry about. Because India, a country, I think it's number 5 when it comes to economic output. So come on, India is one of the big guys. It's one of the players globally with 1.3 billion people. And there is a state ministry of Ayurveda, which also cares about homeopathy and acupuncture and all these kind of things. And you can study this at the university. You can study astrology there. I've met, when you organized me in India in the 2000s, I've met some people who studied astrology at the university. And in Germany and other countries like United States, we seriously discuss whether homeopathy and acupuncture is a hoax and astrology is a hoax to rip off people. And they cite scientists who never have done anything seriously to understand homeopathy, that they say it's a hoax. So we have more than 1 billion people. And just think about Indonesia, the Philippines, Malaysia, China, Pakistan. They all do acupuncture, homeopathy, Ayurveda, and so on. So we have several billions of people who practice since long time with great success these kind of things, while in the Western world we behave like this is something where still there is a kind of proof being needed that it's not a hoax, that people who do this are not criminals. So when I do Rainbow Reiki, when I do White Feather Shamanic School, 3 rays meditation, Lemurian Tantra, and so on, do I try to get scientists to approve what I do? No, not anymore. There were times when I tried that. And I don't do this anymore. So I don't care about that because they have no idea what I'm doing. And the worst is, they don't want to know it. They want to make placebo-controlled double-blind studies. I can tell them that this does not work. Why? Because we are talking about quantum physics effects. We do not talk about something which you can control that way, which you can analyze that way, because the double-blind placebo-controlled research programs do not care about quantum physics. They do not care about what the Professor Ryan in the 60s and the Russian researchers in the 20s and 30s and 40s of last century, and many, many, many other scientists later, made proof that there is no way to prevent one human being to get information from another human being via telepathy or clairvoyance or whatever you like to tell it. It's proven. It's proven since long, long time. But they still tell us, if there was no placebo-controlled double-blind study, which is the gold standard of everything, it's not worth anything what you're doing. So at the same time, they make a special, they call it cleansing. Before they do a placebo-controlled double-blind study, they identify the people who react much better than the usual person to placebo. They cleanse them out, because if they would stay as persons who were studied in the research program, then the new pill will not show any significant advantage if compared with placebo. So they have to cleanse out the people who react well to placebo. So placebo has been studied, and we know a lot about placebo, but medicine does not care about this. So I know that Rainbow Reiki works. I know that It's not just placing on your hands on someone and they will get better. That is very simplified. It's so much simplified that it doesn't work that way to
Mhm.
understand it. But I know it works, it helps. And am I against conventional medicine? No, come on. It's great to have these people. It's great to have their machines and the antibiotics and so on and so on. But what can they do if people have chronic illness and if they have psychosomatic illness, if they have a problem with the soul? They cannot do much. They can give you for a certain time some pills. But these pills usually make life very hard for you because they have so many side effects. So I think that conventional medicine should do the same, like the different kinds of naturopathic medicine. They should be focused with what they are doing on what they can do best and leave the rest to the others. So I made my mind up in the 2000s about doing research the spiritual way about what I'm doing and not the scientific way. Later, in 2008, I met a scientist who really did both because he was, since 25 years, researching clairvoyance, psychic healers, spiritual medium. And he also started 2008 to do research about Uzui-based Reiki. So with this person, Professor Ignatov from Bulgaria, I started research in 2010 after I had watched what he was doing in detail. And I did it again 2013 with dozens and dozens of Rainbow Reiki participants from, I think, about 15 countries or so all around the world: Argentina, United States, Canada, Spain, uh, France, Switzerland, Austria, Germany, and others. So we did a lot of research to see how water was influenced by doing Rainbow Reiki methods with it, and what is the difference when you measure the Kirlian photography, which the couple Kirlian was developing in the 40s and 50s in Russia, and several other methods. So because this person did not want to use placebo-controlled double-blind studies, he said, what I want to do is, I want you to treat that water and to see whether there is a difference or not. And we have a control bottle, so we see what happens in the control bottle. So he was already familiar with people doing spiritual work. So this was something which he focused on beginning 2008, 2010. And before, I was doing a lot of trips to Japan, to Brazil, to India, to Argentina, Venezuela, the United States, the UK, Scotland, France, Netherlands, and then later Spain. And I taught Rainbow Reiki and shamanism of my White Feather Shamanic School, three rays meditation, meeting the angels, and so on and so on. And when doing this, I took down notes. I took down notes about what was going on when I did what, and what was my condition then. And I listened carefully to the angels supporting me. For me, they are real like you are. And so I understood more and more that my memories of Lemuria are valid. So even I was at that time, even if I was using a lot of these things from my memories, I still was in doubt whether that was real. You know, when you are waking up in the middle of the night and you have some very vivid dreams of things going on in a very different kind of land with different kind of people behaving in a way which they never would today, you might think that you meditate a little bit too much, you know.
Exactly.
So even if it's vivid and even if you take some things out of that and teach it to people and they have great experience with it, still there is some doubt. And it took me years and a lot of research to understand you cannot go a scientific way to make proof of that. You must go a spiritual way. And my experience in India and in um, in Japan and Hong Kong helped me a lot with that because I met people there, I met institutions there who were doing things in a different way. So India, in a way, is a kind of melting point of science and spirituality and practical esoterics. And this is something unique. It's come on, that's mind-blowing. There are people like in Bangalore who are the creme de la creme of IT. So if you want to know something about IT, if you look for good programmers, one place you must look is Bangalore.
Yeah.
There are the geeks, the great guys, who know the things which I even don't know the terms of. They can program that stuff. So, and there are other places like when I visited people in southern India, this was even some years before 2000. They had these huts, well-built huts with uh, a dirt floor, and they had the latest computer there, and they were able to work with it, and they were great in mathematics.
Mm.
I thought, what potential is in this country? And they bring together this and yoga and meditation and Ayurveda and homeopathy and acupuncture, and they do this with well over 1 billion people. Come on. They do something we in the Western world are dreaming about, where people write fantasy novels about that kind of society, but you in India, you already live it. Of course, there are shortcomings, but give me one country in the world which has no shortcomings. I don't think you will find one. So this was something which was helping me to understand things in a different way with all that traveling in the 2000s.
I was thinking, I wanted to just go back to that, the investigation you were doing with the water.
Yeah.
If you could just dwell on that, that when you checked on the water, what was the change you could
Well,
manage?
Professor Ignatov, he was doing a very simple thing. He said, we won't go into details which can change by any kind of influence. We go to the the current of the water molecules, which make a water bug walk over the water. You have a certain cohesion of the water molecules, so a water bug can walk on the water and does not get into the water.
Uh-huh.
And the cohesion you can simply chemically neutralize by putting a little drop of any kind of soap into it. And then the water bug will just get into the water and get wet. It doesn't know what's going on here. So, but besides chemical action, there's also physical action which you can do. So there are ways which physicists knows what to do, electromagnetic, whatever, to just get the cohesion away from the water molecules. So you can measure this by, what was it, micro electron volts.
Mhm.
So what Professor Ignatov was doing, and is still doing today, he measures the water in one bottle, which you, the spiritual healer, will treat later on, and another control bottle, which you will not treat, but which is standing at the side of the other bottle. How much bonding, cohesion is there measured in micro electron volts? Then you treat the water, and the physicist, Professor Ignatov, measures the water again. Now, if there was something going on, then the water, which with the physical tools have been completely put into coherent zero. So a water bug would just fall into the water. There is no tension on the water. If this treatment was successful, some tension will have built up. You can measure that. A very simple thing for a physicist, not for me, but a physicist can do that easily, Professor Ignatov said. So they measure how much microelectron volt you build up, because this is to measure how strong, not the quality, but the quantity, how strong your spiritual healing affects the water. This, to a certain extent, tells you how strong your abilities as a spiritual healer are. But mind you, it's like judo and boxing. For boxing, you need that kind of muscles.
Mm.
Or in India, kalari payat. Yeah,
Mm.
I've studied Kalaripayat a little bit in southern India with a master there in Tiruvananthapuram, a great guy. So there are things where you just go with force against force. For this, you need big muscles. But then there are ways to throw someone, to lock someone, where a tiny person weighing half of what you're doing just locks you and immobilizes you. And it's not about force. It's not about power. It's not about muscles. It's about knowing how to do that. So, for example, I can teach anybody within 4 days to do that. And with something which goes on in your mind, which you have been initiated to by me, you can do hip correction for 50 people in one room within that amount of time. You can measure them before, afterwards, everybody will be harmonized. Hips will be straight again. So this is not about quantity, it's about quality. So just to mind you that you should not only look at the quantity, but seen from the quantity point of view, I'm at the top 10 in Europe. I think he did studies on 3,800 healers or so on.
Okay.
I'm in the top 10. But the main thing is the quality, in my understanding. We had people with certain Rainbow Reiki, but also people who just had studied first degree of Rainbow Reiki. So people who have been with me since years and others who just have been in 1 or 2 classes. And they all had excellent results and they were able to influence the water. And this was amazing to Professor Ignatov for half a year. So we changed the cohesion of the molecules, not only strongly, but the change was ongoing. It was diminished month by month a little bit, but you could still measure the change for 6 months. And with the usual Usui-based Reiki or with other kind of spiritual healing modalities, as far as his research goes, you could do this for 3 months.
Okay.
We do not exactly know why this is so and what the effects are, but this is what the research told us. And Professor Ignatov found, not because he wanted, but because it was one of the outcomes of his research, he found out how to identify someone who was trained in Usui-based Reiki, like we with Rainbow Reiki are, or in another system which is not based on Usui Reiki. Because the people who are not based on Usui Reiki, they might be wonderful healers. But if you measure their energy, the energy goes down after they gave a healing. Then they have to replenish the energy, which usually they learn when they are trained as healers. And then they can do another healing. With Reiki, it's different. When you give a Reiki session, being trained in Usui-based Reiki, like Rainbow Reiki, your energy is stronger after you gave a healing than before. And the client's energy is stronger. So this is something special. And so we know that there are even scientific means to identify whether you have studied Usui-based Reiki or not.
Interesting. Very interesting, Walter. I think this your year 2000, and you came up to 2008 today this time, and you mentioned that. I think this is a very relevant thought you presented it when it comes to, because a lot of Westerners here, we are still in the cobweb of understanding science and its modalities. So
Yes.
it's very valid that you're taking up this point. And tell me one thing, when you're anyway taking up the last question I have in for this, that what is spirituality for you?
Well, in a way, it's very simple. There are 2 modalities of language, which you might know from communication sciences or neuro-linguistic programming. One is the language of dreams, which you use for telling fairy tales, for when you do sweet talking to your lover, when you tell a story, and it's good for that. Then there is a language of truth, the meta language. The other one is also understood as Milton language, like Milton Erickson. The meta language is about the 5 friends of the journalist: where, when, why, what, and how. Like WAKOK, what you see, what you hear, what your body senses, what you smell, what you taste. Because the 2 kinds of language create very different modes of reality. With the language of reality, with WAKOK language, I call it, you really explain, you describe what's going on. With a language of dreams, you can change the mood, but you have no grip on reality. So when we talk about spirituality, I would just put aside any kind of religion and church. They are institutions. For me, they are not spiritual. People belonging to these churches could be spiritual people, could walk a spiritual path, but the institutions as such are not, in my understanding at least. So spirituality is when people take it serious to develop qualities of their character, of their personality, towards the personality traits of divine. And this for me is love, consciousness, and personal responsibility. So these are three main traits of divine personality. Could you imagine a creator of the universe telling you, oh, you see, I'm not responsible for that?
Mhm.
Come on. Of course it is. So if this being, let's call it a being, it's simplified, but let's take it that way for a moment, would not be 100% perfectly loving everything, the whole universe will just disappear. Consciousness is important because each three principles rely on the other two. If you are not conscious about something or someone, you cannot love that. You cannot deal with it. You cannot have an opinion about that. So when I do some couple counseling, one of the first things when they say we need more love in our relationship is that I tell them, if you want to love yourself and your partner much more, you need to get more conscious about who you are and about who your partner is. Because you cannot love something or someone you have no idea that it's there. You must be conscious about something to be able to love it. So don't talk about love. First talk about consciousness. And this is why I adore so much the Indian meditation, special kinds of yoga, like this yoga. I think it's from Ramakrishna. I'm not sure. Please correct me. Or Sri Aurobindo, which are geniuses working with the mind and helping people to think, not to get lost in ego feelings and so on. So they think, they are clear. This is great. Or let's look at Osho, Sai Baba. They help people to have a clear mind and widen the consciousness. And widen the consciousness starts with questions. If people don't like questions, they don't like love, because only a question and the search for an answer can open up the other one's personality to you so you can love the person. So most people who say we are in love and we are a loving couple, no, they have the idea that they would like to love the other person, but they never do because they do not put work into getting more conscious about the other person and about themselves. So what do they want to love? There is nothing there. So these three qualities, I think if people seriously go for developing them, this is walking a spiritual path. And if you ask me what love is, well, love is the glue which holds everything together. It is such a good glue that it even can put together a man and a woman. And if this is possible, it's also possible to have world peace.
Absolutely. I'm
So
with you. I think you just said it all. You gave such an important answer to the spirituality and what is love. But then I would just not stop. I want to ask you the questions of what is consciousness and also what is responsibility.
okay, before I can answer that, I need to dive a little bit more into about what love is, because this we need to know for answering the other two questions. You experience love whenever you move towards oneness. Within oneness, you won't experience anything because oneness is oneness. There is nothing to experience.
Yeah.
But if you travel towards oneness, you experience love. This is a centripetal force. Then there is a centrifugal force, which is the ego, the I. This is not wrong. You need it. Because if the planet Earth would not at the same time love the sun and love itself, it could not have a stable orbit around the sun. It will either, if it loves itself more than the sun, it will go out into the universe and everything would die because it gets cold here. And if it would love the sun more than itself, it would go into the sun and it would be destroyed. So it's a good idea to have a balance between the two. But the love is, let's say, more important because it gives you a fixed point, like the sun, where you can orbit around. This is important for a man to know, because a fixed point for a man, if he wants ever to have a home on planet Earth in the material world, doing something valid, is the woman in his life around which he orbits.
Mm.
If the woman dares to let the goddess shine through her, the man will just orbit around her and then has a place on planet Earth. If the woman doesn't want to do that or cannot do that whatsoever, the man is lost, because the man is from universe and the woman is from Earth. So woman understands the goddess, understands Mother Earth. In Indian terms, Durga, Parvati. Parvati once was, because the other gods told her they don't know what else to do. Parvati was traveling as the Shakti to Lord Shiva, because Shiva was meditating all the time, and he meditating so deep that all the life was going out of the universe. So the god said, come on, how do we get this guy out of meditation? So they were doing the only thing which they knew it would work. They were sending lovely Parvati to him to seduce him. And because she was able to seduce him, he was going out of meditation, and so life came back into the universe. The Tory tells it all. So meditation is good, but don't go there too long and too deep, because there is a life.
Really.
And the life has yin and yang. And if you don't have yin and yang, there is no life. So that leads us to consciousness, because only when you move, you can get conscious. So if you move a little bit closer to what you love, or you move a little bit more far away from what you love, this is when you get conscious. You can compare this to driving in a car. You see, when you drive in a car, and you have an even road, you don't drive into a curve. It's just a straight road. You have the same speed all the time. If you just close your eyes, you will not feel that you're moving.
Yeah.
But then when you go into a curve, you will feel that you move. When you accelerate, you feel you move. When you take a break, you break down, you diminish the speed, you will feel that you move, but not when you move at the same speed, the same direction all the time. So this means, if we want to be conscious about love, we need to experience more love and less love.
Mm.
If we have the same love all the time, you won't notice it anymore. It doesn't work. So for consciousness, you need question. And question makes the ego go crazy, because the ego wants to have things all the time like they have been, no change at all. And question makes things change. I think it is, you have one famous book, is it the Bhagavad Gita, where the guy who uh, carries this prince in this warrior chariot,
Yeah, Sanjay.
ma- makes a lot of questions
Yeah.
to help him to develop spirituality.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's the Bhagavad Gita, right?
No, that is Mahabharata. Mahabharata.
Mahabharata. Okay, Mahabharata. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because
I put
Mahabharata.
the many thousands of books I put
Yeah, exactly.
sometimes in confusion.
Yeah.
So I think the name of this guy who made the question was Arjuna, right?
Arjuna, right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
So that is so important. He made questions,
Mm,
because this widens the consciousness.
mm,
So question is from divine,
mm,
and question is eternal. People always have the same questions, but different answers.
mm,
So you need to find answers again all your life, having the same questions.
mm,
Now, the personal responsibility empowers you. People who tell you, you see, this I have done, but this, no, this came into my life, it was just people throwing that at me and so on. Maybe, maybe not. But if they do not understand that they are responsible for their own affairs, they push out the power which otherwise would help them to manage their affairs. Whenever I tell someone, I'm not responsible for this part of my life, I hand over the power over these parts of my life to other people.
mm,
So only responsibility, 100%, gives you the opportunity to handle your life, to deal with your life. And there is a trap, because many people then think it's about guilt. It's not. There is no guilt. Guilt is an invention from people. There is no guilt. There is just karma and dharma, cause and effect. And the effect can go there and can go there. And what makes karma worst is that people only look at the short-term effect of something instead of long-term effect. So when I was traveling to visit Sai Baba in the beginning of the 90s, there was a big festival going on where he said, I release your karma. So I asked him, how can you release karma? Because this is what people were doing in their own lives. You cannot just eliminate what they did in their lives. And he said, no, of course I cannot, but I can help them to get wise by looking at a large time scale and then understand better with their heart, not with the mind. Mind cannot do that. With a heart, they can understand about how this is a part of the divine plan. When understanding that, a lot of that karma goes away. Because now they understand, come on, it's not wrong, it's not right, it's part of divine plan. And yes, I could have done different, but still what I did is part of the plan. So in short, about the 3 points.
Absolutely. We can talk hours on this, but I
Oh,
totally,
yeah.
but I totally, I'm so grateful, Walter, that you took up this, you raked up this thought, because a lot of people, both in India and here, we are struggling with, just blaming others and not taking the full 100% responsibility. It's the
Yeah.
world game. And I think every individual needs to, get to this particular thought first, to take the 100% responsibility and not give over the power, as you said. So
Yes, yes, that is so true, Sanya. And you see, there is one, let's say, big flaw in the idea of society in India, which started, I'm not sure about that. It started about 1,500 years or so ago. I guess it started with invasion of the Islamic people coming to India. I'm not sure about what this one, when this exactly was, because from that time on, there was a common understanding that you cannot change the world, you can only change how you perceive it.
yeah.
But when you look into the scripture, which was done before that, it was that if you change Leela, the cosmic game,
Yeah.
you do this because you develop yourself and then things around you will get different. So the idea of the chaste is that you cannot change anything. It's like Confucius. He said, as long as the son does what the son has to do, the father does what the father has to do, the king does what the king has to do, whole life, everything's right. No, it's not. It's the worst thing you can imagine. So I think that the chaste idea was driving India as a civilization down the drain. And at the moment, during the last decades, India is reviving because more and more people understand we can create our lives.
Yes.
We do not have to suffer our lives. We create it. Like, is it Sri Ravi Shankar, the guy? Yeah.
Yes.
He's
You're
a
right.
great one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's so many different gurus that they are trying to, now come back to Sadguru, Shankar. And I have this beautiful guru here. Now you mentioned guru. It's, he's my guru.
Great.
Brahmarishi Guru Anand Swami from Tirupati. So as you
Wonderful.
mentioned, it is so amazing that you're mentioning today. So I'm just keeping him, in this.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you for showing.
Yeah, and these are all these gurus who are actually what you're talking about, that they're inculcating this thought that things can change.
Yes.
You have the power to
Yes.
change.
Yes.
And number one element, as you mentioned, was taking responsibility, 100%
That
responsibility.
changes it all.
Yes, yes. So, Walter, I just can't thank enough for you to be here with me, and relentlessly you're coming and working. And thank you so much for being who you are. And I'm going to catch up soon again next time.
Thank you for inviting me, Sanya. It's great to have these talks with you, and I'm looking much forward to the next meeting.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye.